Hello everyone, and welcome to a new course on artificial intelligence in architecture. My name is James Mills and I work for M3 Studio here in Europe, and we have been working for some years integrating artificial intelligence in the world of architecture, and through this course we would like to share our knowledge. Firstly, it's important to underline that artificial intelligence is still in its very early stages of development. It still doesn't solve most of the problems we architects have, but we believe we're on the verge of a revolution. We believe we're on the verge of a turning point in which all of these technologies are going to start solving and doing a lot of things for us that are not yet happening. So it's important that we engage with these technologies, that we engage with artificial intelligence as soon as possible, so we get the wave basically, and when these technologies start, we can be familiar with them and probably adjust our styles, adjust our businesses with what's coming. Okay. Something worth noting is that here in M3 Studios, we do real architecture. So we've been doing real architecture for some time, and we've managed to make the most of these technologies in our workflows from the very beginning of the process to the actual construction, and we enter real competitions and we deliver real projects to real clients. So I'm sure you are aware of artificial intelligence being used in architecture through social media, where everything is a bit idealized and maybe utopic, and that's very cool. But just so you know, in this course, you're going to learn how real professionals are working using artificial intelligence to, grounded in reality, down to earth, creating 3D models to enter into competitions, but also in the construction process as well. We're going to divide artificial intelligence in three big families. The first one is generative AI and all the programs you see on screen right now. Generative AI is going to help us with the early stages of the project. It's going to help us brainstorm. Imagine you're brainstorming with your colleagues at the studio. It would be like having a new member in the team, like a trigger to start new ideas, and so forth. The protagonist of these programs is Midjourney, and we are going to see a lot of Midjourney throughout the course, but it's important for you to become familiar with the others: DALL-E, Leonardo, Render, well, the ones you see on screen. It's very important that you get to know them, but we work especially with Midjourney, and again, in reality. So we use Midjourney for real projects, and in fact, thanks to it, we've actually come up with great ideas. Midjourney and the rest of generative AIs also helps in later stages of the project. We will also see that further on, but mostly it's going to help us with those creative parts, early stages of the project. The next family is going to be the LLMs. That stands for large language models. Well, this family, we've decided to include it because it's actually quite essential for any business, any area, any field in life today. It's not that it's essential, but it helps you a lot. It makes things much faster. We are sure you are aware of how these AIs work, but we have been using them a lot in our workflows, and probably soon, whether it's in ChatGPT, Copilot or Gemini, some of the more specific, architectural oriented AIs will be integrated in these LLMs. So they're not going to be as important as the generative AIs or the more architecture-specific AIs, but it is important that you get to know them and especially learn how to apply them in architecture. Whether you're a student or a professional, these LLMs, AIs, can help you a lot in the process of project design. As I said, they come in really handy in every field, but in architecture they have their own uses. The third family would be AI design. So the design of architecture, 3D design, whether it's space design or floor plan distribution, these AIs are going to help you design architecture in general. So as easy as starting off with a plot and basically giving it parameters, these softwares will just design architecture for you. So once we have this third family, we're going to learn how to integrate these three families in our workflow. So we're going to start working with them, and we're going to skip and jump from one AI to another from the very beginning of the project process till the very end, and even in the construction. We in M3 Studio have taken our time to figure out, which are the most important ones. I'm sure some of you may know or might have heard about other technologies, other AIs that are as good as these or very important, but we've taken our time to see which ones are the most important ones and the most useful ones, and we've put them here together, and we'll sort of glance at most of them throughout the course. We're going to spend more time with 2 or 3 AIs within the ones you see, but we believe that we've covered the most relevant AIs to this point. So there are many softwares to be aware of now, and what may happen in the future as these softwares develop, as it happened with Autodesk when we started to draft architecture with computers. You had AutoCAD, you had MicroStation, you had a series of programs, and little by little it all derived in everyone using Autodesk, AutoCAD. Probably will have the similar process with AIs, but for now what we suggest is that we get to learn most of them, or at least know that they exist, because probably in the future some AIs or some of these softwares will become more popular, and probably they'll begin to develop more their technologies and their functions and uses and so forth, and we'll end up using 2 or 3 or maybe just one. So until that happens, we'll have to stick to trying to learn as many as possible to at least be aware of everything that's going on. Now, I would like you to view the process of the design of a building before AIs came up in a more linear, like a timeline, and the programs that we used to use before AI showed up. So in the earlier stages, when you're talking about the concept, or maybe for competitions, okay, you would use these 3 first programs: Photoshop, Illustrator, and SketchUp. And the ones that are in green, they are a maybe, okay? As you enter into the design stages, the design phases, you would carry on using Photoshop, of course, AutoCAD, Rhino as well, Illustrator. And as you advance in the design and you get to design more specific details of construction structures and so forth, you would get into programs such as Revit, even Office, to administer and analyze construction, more technical documents, maybe also SketchUp. But anyway, this is what we used to do before AI was in the picture, right? This is our real buildings were designed using these, like this workflow, okay? But now I would like you to see more or less how the AIs stand, where they stand in the in this workflow. So more or less we've discussed before those families, and now you can see that in the earlier stages you've got Midjourney there, Leonardo AI, that help us in the very early stages. And as we advance, well, you've got architectures starts to get into the design of the actual building, render, Autodesk. Anyway, all of these AIs you can incorporate. We don't use them all of the time, okay? But so just so you see more or less that we've got these AIs, and you can introduce them, you can integrate them in your workflow when they come in handy, okay? And again, this is for real projects, okay? We're doing this for real projects, and probably things will change and we will have fewer programs that integrate all of these functions, probably, as it happened before. And then we've got ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT is completely omnipresent in the workflow of our studio. At least we use it for a lot of things. It is very helpful in the process, in the early stages, and in the final moments for, design support. It also solves construction problems, for writing reports, maybe specifications in technical documents, and even for emails and communication with clients. It helps us a lot. And it also helps with site analysis. You can even take photographs and have it analyze certain bits of the structure, construction, and so forth. Anyway, another member of our studio. So remember that these AIs are not yet substituting the programs, the architect programs, AutoCAD, Revit, Photoshop, but probably they soon will. All, everything will be integrated in fewer, and you can see now that some softwares are under pressure. Programs such as Lumion are in disuse lately. It's not as important as maybe 5 years ago. But now in our workflows and the way we teach and the way we're going to show you throughout the course is to use different AIs along the journey, okay? So it's a constant back and forth of using first Midjourney, then we're going to use others, and you'll see more or less how we work. All of these images here are real projects from our studio that have been developed with AIs, of course, AIs and the other programs. And we are very happy as designers because it's very quick and we're getting the knack of things. But our clients have also expressed their satisfaction with our work. We've also managed to come up and create very realistic images that maybe would have taken us centuries to finish using, the 3D rendering techniques that we had before. Getting to acquire consistency in your AI methods is very difficult and very tricky, and that's something we're going to learn. But when you get the hang of things, you manage to get that consistency, you manage to make the AI work for you. There's also different formats in this world. You've got videos, but I don't want you to entertain with this. I would like to show you this graph before we move on, which represents the Dunning-Kruger effect. Well, basically what this curve is saying is that at the beginning, there's usually a moment of hype. You think, wow, AI is incredible. It can do anything. I fully trust AI. It's going to solve all my problems. But in reality, it's not entirely like this, okay? It happens with many disciplines, okay? Not just in AI, but just I would like you to be aware of what may happen to you, okay? So then there is a learning curve, okay? And you realize that it doesn't get to do everything. It doesn't reach all your goals. It doesn't solve everything by itself, okay? And anyway, during the course, we will learn mechanisms, methods, and strategies to make this AI actually work for us and not against us. And when this moment of realization and value of despair disappear, okay, we will start to create beautiful images, attractive renders, and we will start to be consistent, which is tricky at the beginning, but it can be relatively easy. What is really difficult is making those images actually belong to your project, okay? Making them coherent, located, and architecturally meaningful, okay? Because many times it will happen that you create images and you realize, oh my God, this is not useful. I can't use this. This is not what I'm looking for. And well, this is why we're here in this course. We would love to take you through this journey, okay, the realization, the value of despair, so you learn how to control, how to master these AIs to come up with really good designs, in our case, designs of real buildings that have been successful. We've managed to construct them, we've entered competitions, and the results have been very good, okay? Next, important, before we carry on, are a bit of theory, okay? A bit of theory regarding the essence of the generative adversarial networks, okay? I know it's not directly related to architecture, but I think it's useful that we know more or less what the machine is thinking about, what the machine is doing. Sometimes we believe, oh my God, you just enter a prompt and it's kind of like magic, right? Where has this come from? How did it occur? You enter a car, house, tree into a prompt, and suddenly it comes out of nowhere. But it is not magic, okay? It is a very complex technology that, to be honest, I don't completely understand. But when I understood this, it sort of helped me carry on, and I developed my ideas with, the prompts and all the instructions you give to these AIs to better your relationship with Midjourney. And anyway, these AIs. Well, all the magic starts here, okay? On the one hand, you have a training set. Okay, in this training set, you have millions, thousands, millions of images of trees, okay? And then you have a noise generator, okay? So it creates random noise, and it comes up, thanks to the training set, it comes up with a fake image. So the tree comes from zero. The program creates it from scratch until it reaches this discriminator, okay? The discriminator can, kindly be called like the policeman. The policeman is going to decide if it's real or if it's fake, if it's a real tree or if it's fake. So it's going to let it through if it believes it's a real tree, and it's going to block it, not let it pass if it's a fake tree. Now, you probably can remember images from the past in which maybe the police was more permissive, okay, and it let through images that weren't actually as good as they are today, right? And they'll probably carry on becoming better and better. So basically, it starts from noise, and until it reaches the discriminator, the policeman, and the policeman will decide whether it's good enough for our technology, okay? So it's a very basic explanation, but more or less it helps you understand what's going on, what the machine is doing, okay? Also, for example, for texts, you could have in your training sets millions of covering letters, for example, from lawyers. And if you have millions of those covering letters, it will come up with one of those letters based on that training set they have. Very important as well, these data sets. The more trees you have, the better idea the program's going to have of what a tree is, and the training is going to be far better. The discriminator is going to have a better idea of what a tree is, and of course types of trees, branches, leaves, and so on and so forth. So data sets are like the essence that is needed for this GAN to work properly, okay? So what point are we in now? I would like to show you the evolution of what has happened over time since February 2022, when the first version of Midjourney came up. And the image that you see is with the same prompt. Okay, we're going to compare some images now. Is what Midjourney 1 created. So using a very simple prompt, okay, the one that is above, Midjourney 1 created this image, okay, and this would be version 2 of the Midjourney. This would be number 3, and as you can see, it is evolving little by little. The images become more consistent, and this is the last version that we have here. So, well, the difference is noticeable. So if you look at the earlier image, it's very simple. Could be interesting in some aspects, maybe artistic. It has these incoherences, you know, you've got 2 towers there, okay, but it's not really what we asked for in the prompt. Whereas on the right, you've got the newer image, and firstly, it has that much more power, more presence, more clarity, and this has happened over a very short period of time, okay? So if you look into the future, what things can we expect of AIs, okay? The first thing we've thought about here in the studio is that we're probably going to have a better 3D design or 3D rendering of architecture in general, okay? Some AI systems are already moving in this direction, and of course for us architects, it's a key step. Another important aspect, of course, is coherence. In the first images you see broken buildings, impossible towers, things that don't make any sense. And in the latest, and probably in the future, you will have more realistic stuff, things that just make much more sense. Of course, the designer's personal style is something that AIs are working on now. We want to portray exactly what the person who's writing the prompt wants. What is it that we have to do? Little by little, these AIs are becoming more efficient in doing that, and probably in the near future, they will be even better. And finally, the plans, elevations, and sections. There's probably more waiting period to get AIs to do these for us, which is actually architecture. But for now, these 3 points are in the near future: coherence, 3D designs, and that alignment with the designer's style. This leads us to the following question, okay? Are we still relevant? Are we going to become obsolete? Well, probably if you're doing this course, you believe that this is not true, of course. But we are not now in a pre-AI situation, okay? Before, we had that much more exclusive weight in the design of projects. Now, a new agent has arrived. AIs, okay, and it is capable of producing work similar to or sometimes better than humans, okay? And where do we stand? What do architects do? What is our role now? Well, I think we're still essential, okay? But it's not that simple. I think that we have three qualities, okay? Three qualities that should be highly valued, okay? The first one there in the list would be architectural sensitivity, okay? You could just leave the AI do whatever it likes, but we have to be able to discriminate as well. AI can generate 100, 500, 1,000 ideas, okay? But choosing one is extremely difficult. Choosing the one, the perfect one, is what we should do now, okay? Instead of creating it, we can start from those images and choose the correct one. Otherwise, you can commit a lot of mistakes, no? So this is going to help us with our brainstorming process, and we don't want to get to a dead-end solution or a meaningless option or something that simply doesn't work architecturally. It's not aesthetically pleasant, okay? So we have to know how to evaluate using our architectural eye, of course, our sensitivity, and know how to guide the AI and know what we want to get from it, okay? That's what we're going to be valued for. The next aspect would be prompt engineering. Now, well, you know what creating a prompt is. This is quite clear, right? Anyone with a solid knowledge on any field is going to become a good communicator with anyone, and this machine is not an exception, right? So knowing how to write to the AI, knowing how to communicate ideas through text is what is going to make us stand out, okay? So architectural ideas or design intentions, giving technical instructions, okay? It's not just anything, so we as architects are going to be much better at doing this. I'm sure maybe a teacher would be great at prompt engineering in order to develop exercises, or a writer in order to develop other texts that he's going to be writing. But us with a solid background in architecture can become great transmitters of this of the information that we want to put across. And finally, which is more or less what I've been talking about now, is architectural knowledge. Of course, you can become a great prompt engineer and know or love about architecture, but if you don't have a solid background, if you don't have a culture, okay, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to have the same outcomes as an architect would do. So I think this one is probably fundamental, the most important one. It gives a real opportunity to the traditional architect, especially to those who may not fully jump into the new tools immediately, okay? So if you've been working for some time, you are going to create better architecture using these AIs despite not having everything under control. I honestly believe that. So if you value the culture, if you have strong architectural history, architectural movements, backgrounds, references of architects, if you know about construction or architectural elements, you're going to make the most of these AIs. You're going to get much more out of these AIs, okay? Without the culture, someone may be very good at AIs, okay, very good at prompting, but won't get the results, won't manage to make the machine do exactly what they're doing, okay? So for architects that already have experience, I think it's going to be far easier to make the most of the use of these tools. Okay, so let's start with a very simple exercise. a simple exercise, but an exercise that could be real, okay, something that could happen. Let's say that you work for an architect studio and you want to enter into a competition for a small tram station, like a platform in Paris, okay? So they want to a design, they want some ideas, maybe there are some connections in this tram station, and the city hall is demanding us or requiring us to come up with like a solution, set of images, just to see what comes up in this competition. Okay, so first we're going to start with the AIs we're going to work with for this short exercise. We're going to go for Midjourney, Leonardo AI, and ChatGPT. Midjourney, if you want to use Midjourney, you have to pay. So you've got like a monthly subscription for that. Leonardo is free, and you've got a limited number of images you can create, 3D images you can create. Maybe it's 6 to 10 images depending on the size. And ChatGPT again has its free options, but if you pay a monthly subscription, then you've got more things and more text you can generate with that premium membership. Okay, so if you're here for just being curious for the course, you can start without paying, maybe ChatGPT and Leonardo, but it's important that you pay for Midjourney. So I'm entering here Midjourney in Google, and you click on Google, and this is the screen that is going to show. And if you don't have a profile, okay, if you haven't ever signed up, you can choose whether to continue with Discord or with your Google, and you would sign in here. Okay, and when you sign up, this is the screen that you will see. We'll study the interface a bit more deeply in a while. Okay, and now I'm going to add here, just so you know, I'm in incognito because otherwise it would sign up automatically. Okay, you type Leonardo AI, and you click on the first link that shows, and you click here and get started, and the process is exactly the same. Okay, you start with your email. You will have to verify your profile from the email. You'll receive an email and you have to verify from your email box. And finally, ChatGPT. Here you go, make sure it's chatgpt.com, and you click here. Most of you have a profile. Again, I recommend that you sign up and you pay, but there's a lot you can do without paying. Okay, so we're going to be using these 3 interfaces now. So we're going to talk about the interfaces, and so this is the image you're going to see when you sign up to Midjourney. Okay, so the first things that comes on screen are images or videos other users have designed. Okay, they're all here. You can be a bit nosy if you like, check them out. And here is the bar with all the options. You've got create, edit, personalize. In this option, personalize is where you're going to make the designs yours. You can organize. Here you've got chat, okay, different chats, and then you've got tasks. Here you get like extra hours from Midjourney, okay, and then you've got help, updates, and if you click here, you can say manage subscription. Okay, and here you've got the plans. Okay, this is my pro plan, but if you go scroll down, you get the different options you can have with Midjourney. Okay, you've got a €10 monthly plan, and it offers what you see here. You've got a €30, which is the one I recommend, because the basic plan may be a bit too basic. It only allows you to do a certain number of images, maybe 100, 200, which is not enough. Okay, and you can cancel there. So once you finish, if you don't like it, you can cancel depending on the time you spend. I recommend this €30 plan. It's enough to do the course, but of course, the more you pay, the more images you can create, the faster it works, and the more options you have in general. We'll talk about that further on as well. But well, it works as many subscriptions to many softwares and plans. They work very similarly. Okay, I do think it's worth it. So if you're not sure about it, maybe you can start with the basic plan and move on afterwards. So now, what are we going to do? You're going to get these 3 programs and you're going to have them open in your browsers. Okay, one Midjourney here in Create. Okay, and here is where we're going to enter our prompt. Remember, the prompt is the set of instructions that we write down in order to get some kind of response from our AIs. And well, depending on the technology, depending on the program, you get different responses, but more or less they work similarly. Okay, so remember that we have our 3 points, the ones we talked about before. Our sensitivity as architects, our engineering, our prompt engineering, and then the architectural culture or background that we have. So instead of just asking for the program to come up with any art design, we're going to try and give it, some idea. So we're going to say architectural exterior render of a minimalist. I'm using the word minimalist because I want to have a minimalist result. Okay, and a tram station in, we said it was Paris. Okay, in a Paris plaza. Okay, so when we normally start with the most important bits. Not that the rest is not important, but it's important to give some a general idea so the software knows what we want. Okay, and as we advance, we're going to get more into details. We're going to talk more about the format of the prompt soon. Okay, so now I'm going to add a bit of detail. So I'm going to say sleek wooden paneling because that's the image that I'm thinking of now, and I want a modern design. Okay, remember, I just want ideas, and I'm thinking of something wooden, maybe elegant and clean, minimalistic. Okay, I'm going to say elegant and clean lines, and maybe something else. So I've given it some adjectives and I've given it some maybe more architectural terminology. Okay, a bit of everything. And finally, maybe giving details of the actual photograph, cinematic shot, and maybe soft light. And if you have been to Paris, I'm gonna, urban. If I wrote urban with an M, it would identify the mistake, but I'm gonna correct this. Okay, so soft lighting, urban environment, and evenings in Paris are spectacular. the atmosphere, the environment going on in the city. So I'm just gonna say evening atmosphere, see what it comes up with, okay? And I'm gonna ask it to give it some texture and realistic. And again, this mistake it would identify, no problem, but I'm gonna write it correctly. Realistic texture, okay? This would be a prompt, okay? And what I'm gonna do is to copy this prompt and paste it into the other softwares. So I'm gonna copy it here. And then I'm going to submit. And as I click submit, Midjourney is going to generate 4 different images. Remember now it's discriminating wooden, discriminating minimalist, discriminating elegant, all of those words. Paris Plaza, okay. Okay, it's 100%, it's completed. And now you've got these 4 proposals by Midjourney. So we've got some interesting ideas here, these curves. This one is also quite neat. Okay, and there you've got the Paris context. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we're gonna do the same here in ChatGPT, and I'm just going to add this draw me and then paste the prompt, an architectural exterior. And we'll do the same now with Leonardo, okay? Leonardo has this option, which is 150 tokens. You can use them up in a day, and the next day you'll have them again, so you know how well you're doing. It also has a simple interface, okay? Nice and clear, with fancier options if you're paying. So it's a good program. Okay, so you've got everything here. Anyway, I've pasted and I'm generating the same prompt as I have done with Midjourney. So for me, maybe Leonardo's is 6 out of 10, ChatGPT 6 out of 10, and Midjourney 9 or 10 out of 10. You're gonna see the difference now. But the great thing about this is that you can ask it to generate 4 more. Okay, same prompt, but 4 more. So 4 times 4, because it already does 4 on its own by default. So you're going to have 16. Okay, so you've got plenty of ideas here to start thinking. Now here is ChatGPT working, and here's Leonardo's proposals. Here they are. As you can see, maybe it's a bit more, I don't know, maybe a bit out of place. This is more realistic, more, you can imagine yourself more in Paris, right? This one I really like. Okay, maybe we can develop this idea. We're going to see how to do it now. But the Leonardo images do seem a bit more childish, maybe. Okay, I've liked this. So I'm going to paste my prompt again, and after minimalist, Mies van der Rohe. Okay, so again, this comes down to your architectural sensitivity or culture, and if you hyphen and R4, you're asking it for 4 copies. Okay, so what this is going to do is to create 4 images instead of 1, and it's going to give it a Mies van der Rohe style. See if there are any differences. So at the studio, we normally use a lot the options of, you know, hyphen, R, 4, 6, 7. We try and get out as many as possible. So as you can see in these images, so we have a bit more of what we had before, but with a Farnsworth style maybe, you know, the Barcelona pavilion. Okay, very minimalist with its wood, but it's added the architect's touch. Okay, we still don't know how we're going to proceed. Okay, as you can see, some of them are quite inconsistent. They don't have a lot to do with each other, but we still are in the creative early stages of the project, so not to worry for now. So as I said, what's the next stage? Well, now it's the time to choose, right? So in real life, in the studio, what we would do is to get 100, 200, 300 images and start to select. We would pass them on and think about the qualities, the features they have. Okay, and we would change things around, maybe change materials, change the architects, so concrete instead of wood, Sitha, Koolhaas instead of Mies. Okay, and once we had like a selection of, you know, a lot of images, we would go for one. In this case, I like this one. Okay, seems quite interesting, strong image. These lines are quite elegant as well, also quite unique, discreet as well. Anyway, I like it. So if you click on it, you'll see here on the right, you've got other options. Okay, other options to work with. We're going to focus on this one, vary. Okay, and as these words suggest, you can either vary subtly in the button subtle, or you can vary strongly, okay, in the button strong. Okay, so this one is going to come up with variations, subtle variations, you know, minor changes, and this one is going to respect the essence of the architecture you've created, but is going to come up with more drastic changes. Maybe the shapes, maybe the geometry, but not as much like the essence of the building itself. Okay, so we click on both of them, come up, and we'll see the changes here. In variation, you see this one's the subtle one, and you can see there's you know, these changes a bit different. Okay, you can work with the prompt, you can change the prompt, edit these options. Okay, anyway, as you can see, those are subtle changes. Okay, and these are the more drastic, stronger changes. Okay, the idea is still there, the essence of the building is maintained, but you've got different, you know, a different building in reality, right? Okay, great. So I'm going to paste this again, and I'm going to ask it to change the material. Okay, so instead of sleek wooden paneling, I'm gonna go for white concrete. See what it does. And I'd like you to click here in settings, and you've got more options here. You've got square, portrait, and landscape. Of course, it depends on the building. We're gonna keep it here in landscape, but you may want to change that, the size if you like. Okay, we are going to see all these options further on in the course. Okay, standard and raw, fast, we're in the fast mode. You can go in turbo mode if you like, which just delivers images really quickly, or in the relaxed mode, which takes its time at maybe a minute per image. But we normally go for the fast. It's pretty quick. We can do things whilst it's creating, and we don't need the turbo. And anyway, stylization and weirdness we'll see further on. Okay, so let's see what it does with the white concrete. So whilst it thinks, we're going to see what it's done in ChatGPT. Well, you see a big difference, right? It has done what I asked it to do. Maybe the context is great, but the proposals lack character, maybe. Some way different, some way similar. But anyway. And here in Leonardo, okay, we're going to do the same. White concrete, see what it does. Generate, and again, you've got these options here that you can play around with. Okay, so taking into account that this is a free app, it's actually quite good. So whilst it loads, I'm going to go back to Midjourney and check what it's done with my latest prompt. Remember, I changed the material and we've got these ones. Okay, so it's used the same geometries more or less, but it's just changed the material. And here is where our architectural sensitivity would come in. Okay, what matches best with the city of Paris? Probably these ones, the ones we did before, rather than these last ones. Okay, so that's up to you to think of, but I would keep the ones we have done. Play around, you know, change the prompt as much as you like, and you'll find out and you'll learn a lot. Okay, now I would like to learn more about parameters that Midjourney offers. Okay, we've got this landscape we've worked with before. Okay, we've seen the -R4 to have more copies. Okay, but this landscape we can change. Okay, we can change the ratio. So if you just type again, AR, and then your ratio 2:1, AR stands for aspect ratio. Okay, so I'm going to give it 2:1. We're going to give it 2:1, which is a landscape mode. Okay, and -Q4. Q stands for quality. Okay, so if I say 4, I just want to add a bit more quality to the image. And now R4 to have our 16 copies with the same prompt. Okay, click on enter and see what we have. It is quite addictive. You start working and you just love it. You start generating images and you consume your tokens, you consume your images like by a lot. So the €10 plan is 10 hours a month of prompts of image creating in the fast mode. €30 would be 30 hours. And it's very easy to consume all of the hours in a month, because as I say, it's quite addictive. Okay, so here are our 4 versions of quality 4, aspect ratio 2:1, and you've got some variants that we can use. So it's also important not to commit to an image, despite the fact you may love it, okay, to carry on creating. But I still think this one is my favorite, these four. Okay, so I'm going to work on this image. So my suggestion is that you pick 2 or 3 images, and now you can start working with these options. You can pan. And these arrows, basically, what they're going to do, they're going to stretch our image to the left, right, or up and down. So what stretch? It's going to generate more image to the left, generate more image to the right, depending on what we click on. So I would like to see the image, what goes on to the left of my building, okay? And then you can upscale in a subtle way, and you can always rerun, okay? Rerun, if you didn't like the pan, you can rerun, make it do it again. Okay, and of course you can click on these as many times as you like. Okay, and you've got them here, and with them here, and we can go upstairs and find what we've done. And as you can see, these are the pans to the left, and it's generated more image to the left of my building, which again, it's the evening scene we're talking about. Very credible, very realistic. Okay, I could carry on clicking on the left, generating more image to the left, and I can carry on to the right forever. Okay, I do like this perspective. Okay, and here it's done it the other direction. Okay, to the right. Okay, and it starts to be quite consistent, right? The architecture, all of these proposals. Okay, these are the reruns. Okay, with variations, and architecturally speaking, you can pay attention to the details, and maybe it'll give you ideas. Okay, so for this image, we could vary strong, we can pan, and we can upscale, okay? Upscaling basically means it's going to generate more images, but giving it a subtle difference, okay? But improving its quality. And then we can ask it to be creative. And creative, you know, may get a bit out of hand, but it may be interesting too. We normally use upscale when we are not satisfied with the quality and we want to give it that extra boost of quality to the image. Okay. Okay, so you've got the options here. And now you can start to work on one of these, and if you zoom in, you can see a noticeable difference in the quality of the image. So when you really like one and you want to give it, like, yes, that extra, you know, resolution, clearer resolution, you can upscale the image, and you can try off creative and subtle as well. So now what we've got to do is to create a video. So I go here at the very bottom, animate image, and you can give it an auto. You can do it manually as well, but you got low motion and high motion. Low motion means that the image is going to move more slowly. We're going to see how that works. And high motion would be the opposite, more movement in the camera and like a quicker and you know, more movement in general. Okay, we are going to see more how these work. Okay, So for those who've just started in AIs, you might be a bit going crazy now. Okay, so we're about to finish, but what I would like you to do, for those who have Midjourney, for this lesson to create an image and a video, and for those who don't have Midjourney, you can either use ChatGPT, play around with ChatGPT. It doesn't do videos, but I would like you to send over an image of your platform, okay, of your tram station, either with ChatGPT or with Leonardo, okay? Leonardo doesn't do videos. You get the message. You can download it here and send it to us, okay? I'm sure you've realized the difference in quality between one and the other. Let's see the videos. This would be the low motion. Okay, as you can see, very believable. This is the low motion, and you've got different options. Okay, so little movement. Okay, so it's gonna take out 4 every time we click, and this one is the high motion. Okay, so basically helps us not waste time, because if you have an idea, if you wanted a 3D model of this idea, it would take ages, but you're thinking more or less what you want for Paris, and you just ask the machine to do it for you, and we start brainstorming and we start discussing. So a few of us will start to create images on our computers, and we'll start a discussion, which wouldn't be possible if we didn't have these AIs, because you wouldn't get a result like this in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, how do you download this? Here, you can click here, or an image, it's the same. Okay, click on the download button. So for today's class, an image and a video, if you have Midjourney, and if you don't have Midjourney, ChatGPT or Leonardo. Okay, but I do encourage you to use this Midjourney application because it's outstanding. Okay, so I also suggest that you change the prompt as many times as you possibly can. You play with materials, you play with the architects, you play with your architectural sensitivity, which is something we've been talking about a lot. And when you get an image, when you have an image that you really think is worth it, please send it, okay, as an exercise for today's lesson. Okay, and I'm sure that the more you create, the more you will want to create, and the better images you will come up with. Okay, so no more for today. See you in the next lesson.